way to get closer to God is to pray. But I feel closer to God when I read the Quran or listen to the Quran, depending on the version of the report, than prayer. And then it says, and God says, وَكُن مِّنَ السَّاجِدِينَ, and prostrate. So what's wrong with me? In prayer, I prostrate. And in reading or listening to the Quran, I'm not prostrating. So the Prophet reportedly then tells him, if you listen to the Quran and it enters your heart, فَأَنْتَ مِنَ السَّاجِدِينَ, you are prostrating before God, right? It is here now the paradigm of this purely ritualistic as the embodiment of meaning becomes unpacked. One of the I'm trying to get one of my graduate students to do this, to complete the study, is a very interesting question. What traditions, you have a huge corpus of traditions. What percentage or what kind of traditions are popular among Muslims around the world? One of the preliminary conclusions she has reached, which I found really fascinating, is that when she started looking at prophetic traditions and which she found quite a bit of diversity at the beginning of the century as to which prophetic traditions, for instance, would be mentioned in Malay or in Ethiopia or in Malaysia or in Egypt. So it is as if different prophetic traditions had created cultures or interacted with cultures but when she looked at the contemporary period, it is increasingly streamlining of publications that repeat a certain genre of prophetic traditions over and over and over and over. And the minute the prophetic traditions that all of us now are very accustomed to, about bid'ah and fitna and obedience of the ruler and don't imitate and the Quranic verse that actually there is no tradition prohibiting music, but we've all heard it, or women visiting graves, and I mean, which is a remarkable thing because for these traditions there were always counter traditions, and yet this notion that women ought not visit graves or are banned from visiting graves, even if it's her father or her husband, are making such an inroad and so dogmatically that it is truly shocking. Because if you actually look at Speaking God's Name, I mentioned the counter traditions and one of them, Aisha, when someone tries to tell her that you should not visit the grave, she retorts, how can you take a right from us that God gave us? I mean, so it's a very powerful tradition. Anyway, I hope that, it's been this intensive 2 weeks, 3 hours, it is it's a very heavy dosage. And I've told you that you end up in my seminars with a headache, and that's only just a manifestation of the fact that pain in the right way is a form of beauty in itself. And
pain again. Tricky. Nice experience. Good headache.
But it's I hope this is one of the stories that I've heard once about teaching that really made me abandon all expectations of numbers and so on, is that I was a woman that I know went to a remote Iranian village, and the villagers there knew that she was raised in the United States, and so they wanted to be nice to her, and they looked around. They had 2 books in English, and that's the only English book. So they came to her and said, okay, well, the only 2 books in English we have are these. Maybe you'd like to read them. And I think the first book, I don't remember what it was. It was a novel, something like a Jane Austen novel or something like that. And the second book, interestingly enough, was Speaking God's Name. Mm-hmm. And how did it get there? You don't know. If I've raised enough questions in your mind that you want to pursue at least my normative struggles with various ideas, the book that I would and you're not a jurist and you have no plans to become a jurist, and the book that I really recommend to you is The Search for Beauty in Islam.
Yeah, I've read some of it. It's a very interesting kind of educational fiction type.
It's
I've never come across something like this.
It's a genre that doesn't exist, but at the same time, it is. Within it is the sum total of seeing the Islamic intellectual heritage as a movie that rolls before my consciousness every evening as I sit in the midst of all these volumes and volumes and volumes of text, and at the same time constantly countering very real problems and the very real question of what does all these volumes have to say to all these very real problems. And it's all in the context of that moment where you get a glimpse of the beauty of the divine, and it makes so much ugliness just melt away. So I very much urge you to read it. All right. It was an honor. Thank you so much.
It was an honor.
For us.
I don't know if there are arrangements if you want to have credits for this masterclass. You have spoken on that or not?
Actually, no, but I assume that you were getting credits.
I don't need it.
You don't need it? Otherwise, you must make an arrangement that you write a paper or something like that you can grade.
Okay, I mean, if anyone that wants a credit, just talk to me and we'll make an arrangement for something. I'll probably have you write on Place of Tolerance in Islam, or even about the whole 2 weeks. I'd be actually interested in for my own record and edification on your reflections on because we covered a great deal of material, and it's such a great deal of material in such a short span. I mean, your brain does most of the dissection later, much later, sometimes years later. So,
do you ever go to New York?
Yeah,
for any reason?
Quite often.
Family there? Okay. Well, I really shouldn't. Well, I would like to put you in touch with my Sufi order because they have like a sort of monthly talk, and I've had a kind of commentary going during this class, starting from when you said that a lot of Sufi traditions don't know how to respond intellectually to the challenges now. I mean, they come from a period when these things were normative, and there wasn't a debate about a lot of these things. And I think that my sheikha would be really very fascinated to have the community sit around and ask you some questions, especially along the lines of this, what you've said about speaking in God's names and these counter traditions, because I come across them. These traditions that are more subtle, like when the Prophet says religion is in here, and points to his heart. These things which, Sufis are sort of accused of being hippies for using, and which are authentic traditions. And I think they would love to grow a little bit intellectually.
I would welcome it. I mean, I would welcome that. One of the search for beauty of Islam has sold quite well among Sufi Muslims, and if you actually go on Amazon US and you look at the commentaries,
It's all from people from.
I mean, there are some people that clearly don't belong to anything, but there are many of the more profound commentaries, people who belong to the Sufi order. Of course, you know, the Wahhabis can't. I mean, it's an experiment in itself, because an interesting one is that they really could not understand what this book is about. I mean, what does it mean to say? What is the issue? Just go look up hadith and give it to them, and send them away. But of course, part of the whole discourse is to produce a subtlety of discourse, and part of the whole process to produce a subtlety of discourse that you actually find, and that it is not a matter of just spewing back some type of report. And so, but I would welcome it.
So what do I just directly put you in touch, or is there someone who arranges those
best
things
way,
for you?
Grace. There's someone else in the U.S., an assistant called Mark Williams, but Grace and Mark work together.
So I should get Grace's contact.
She arranges them. I often don't know. I mean, I literally carried from one spot put to another.
Okay.
Well, I cannot speak for the students because you are all people on your own, but I can speak on behalf of the faculty. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
It was my pleasure.
My pleasure. We would like to get a picture together.
Oh, yeah, that would be very nice.
Where do you want it? There together with the board?
Our side or? Our side?
Our side, so that's fine for me.
I think, okay.
No problem.
Outside, like outdoors?
No, just
outside over there.
outside here, I think.
Can you hand me my jacket?
Sure.